The Mafia boss happens to be my sex partner. Rain swallowed the city whole that night. Sheets of water hammered the pavement. Neon signs flickered through the darkness, their reflections stretching across flooded streets like shattered pieces of a dream. Thunder rumbled overhead, low and menacing, while distant sirens echoed somewhere beyond the maze of towering buildings. Sophia Carter ran. Her lungs burned. Her soaked hair clung to her face. Her shoes splashed through puddles as she pushed herself harder, ignoring the pain shooting through her legs. She couldn't stop. She couldn't afford to stop. Not tonight. Not when they were so close. A quick glance over her shoulder sent another wave of panic crashing through her chest. A pair of headlights appeared at the far end of the street. Then another. And another. The black vehicles moved with terrifying purpose. Following her. Hunting her. Fear tightened around her throat. How had they found her? She had been careful. For months, she had been careful. She had changed apartments. Changed jobs. Changed routines. She had erased every trace she could think of. Yet somehow, they had still found her. A horn blared somewhere nearby. Sophia darted across the street, barely avoiding an approaching taxi. The driver shouted something she couldn't hear over the storm. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to keep moving. To disappear. To survive. Because if the men behind those tinted windows caught her, everything she had sacrificed would be for nothing. Everything. A sharp turn brought her into a narrow alley illuminated by a single flickering street lamp. For one desperate second, she thought she had escaped. Then the sound reached her. Engines. Multiple engines. Closing in from both directions. Her stomach dropped. No. No, no, no. She spun around. At the entrance of the alley, 3 black SUVs rolled to a stop. The opposite end was blocked seconds later. Sophia froze. Rain poured down around her. The vehicles formed a wall of black steel. There was nowhere left to run. Nowhere. The doors opened. One by one, men stepped out. Tall. Armed. Dressed in dark suits despite the storm. Their movements were calm. Disciplined. Professional. Not street criminals. Not random attackers. These men belonged to someone. Someone powerful. Someone dangerous. Sophia's heart nearly stopped. Because deep down, she already knew who that someone was. The men spread out across the alley. Silent. Watching. Waiting. None of them approached her. None of them spoke. It was as if they were waiting for permission. Waiting for someone else's arrival. Then a final SUV pulled into the alley. larger, more expensive, more intimidating. The vehicle came to a smooth stop directly in front of her. The world seemed to hold its breath. Even the rain felt quieter. Sophia stared at the dark-tinted window. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Please don't be him. Please. The driver's door opened first. A bodyguard stepped out. Then another. And another. Each one immediately took position, creating a protective perimeter around the rear passenger door. Sophia's hands trembled. Because she knew. Before the door even opened. She knew. The rear door swung outward. A polished black shoe touched the wet pavement, followed by a powerful frame dressed in an impeccably tailored black suit. The man straightened slowly. Thunder cracked across the sky. And for the first time in 6 months, Sophia Carter saw him again. Alessandro Moretti, the most feared Mafia boss in the city. The man whose name was whispered behind closed doors. The man powerful politicians feared. The man rival criminals avoided. The man capable of making people disappear with a single command. And the man she had spent one unforgettable night with. A night she had tried desperately to forget. A night that changed her life. Forever. Water rolled from his dark hair as he stepped forward. His expression was unreadable. Cold. Controlled. Dangerous. Yet his eyes. Those eyes remained exactly as she remembered. Dark enough to hide secrets. Sharp enough to uncover lies. Eyes that had haunted her dreams for months. Sophia felt her breath catch. 6 months. 6 months of running. 6 months of hiding. 6 months of convincing herself she would never see him again. And now he stood less than 10 feet away, looking at her as though she were the answer to a question he had spent half a year trying to solve. Neither of them spoke. The tension stretched between them. Heavy. Electric. Painfully familiar. Rain drummed against metal and concrete. Still neither moved. Sophia wanted to run. Wanted to disappear. Wanted to turn back time and undo every decision she had made since the night they met. But she couldn't. Because one look at Alessandro's face told her something terrifying. He hadn't forgotten her. Not even close. If anything, he looked more determined than ever. Finally, he took a single step forward. Then another. Until only a few feet separated them. Sophia forced herself to hold his gaze. Forced herself not to reveal the fear threatening to consume her. The fear wasn't for herself. It never had been. It was for the secret she had protected for months. The secret that could change everything. The secret Alessandro still knew nothing about. For now. His jaw tightened. The storm raged around them. And when he finally spoke, His voice was low, dangerously calm. The kind of calm that came before devastation. "I've been looking for you." The word struck her harder than any scream ever could. Sophia swallowed. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs. Because she could hear it. The truth hidden beneath those 5 words. Months of searching. Months of obsession. Months of unanswered questions. Months of anger. And perhaps something else. Something neither of them was ready to name. Alessandro took another step closer. His gaze never leaving hers. "You disappeared." Sophia struggled to find her voice. The alley suddenly felt too small. The air too thin. Finally she managed to whisper, "I had my reasons." His eyes darkened. "And now you're going to tell me what they are." Sophia's pulse spiked. Because if he learned the truth, if he discovered why she had run, why she had hidden, why she had spent 6 months living in fear, nothing would ever be the same again. Then a sudden shout erupted from one of Alessandro's guards. Everyone turned. A black sedan had appeared at the mouth of the alley. Moving fast. Too fast. The guards immediately reached for their weapons. Alessandro's expression hardened. Danger returned to the atmosphere like a living thing. Sophia's stomach twisted. Because she recognized that car. And if she was right, the people inside weren't there for Alessandro. They were there for her. The sedan accelerated. The guards moved. Weapons emerged. Rain exploded across the pavement. And in that terrifying instant, Sophia realized one horrifying truth. The nightmare she had been running from had finally caught up with her. And it was only beginning. 3 months earlier. If anyone had told Sophia Carter that a single night could completely alter the course of her life, she would have laughed in their face. Not because she didn't believe in fate. Not because she didn't believe in love. But because life had taught her that fairy tales were for people luckier than her. At 25 years old, Sophia knew exactly how the world worked. Rich people became richer. Powerful people became more powerful. And people like her spent every day fighting just to stay afloat. That was reality. No prince was coming to rescue her. No miracle was waiting around the corner. And certainly no handsome billionaire was about to fall in love with a woman who spent most of her evenings calculating whether she could afford groceries after paying rent. Sophia had accepted that long ago. Which was exactly why she found herself standing in front of her tiny bathroom mirror on a Thursday evening, struggling to zip up a dress she hadn't worn in nearly 2 years. The navy blue gown wasn't expensive. It wasn't designer. It wasn't even particularly fashionable anymore. But it was the nicest thing she owned. And tonight, it would have to do. After several failed attempts, she finally managed to pull the zipper up. She exhaled. Good enough. The reflection staring back at her looked almost unfamiliar. Her chestnut brown hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. A little makeup concealed the exhaustion that had become a permanent part of her life. For once, she didn't look like someone who worked 2 jobs and survived on 4 hours of sleep. For once, she almost looked like she belonged somewhere glamorous. Almost. Her phone buzzed on the sink. The screen lit up. "MIA." Sophia answered immediately. "Tell me you're already downstairs." Her best friend's dramatic groan exploded through the speaker. "Absolutely not." Sophia smiled despite herself. "Mia, do you have any idea how difficult it is to walk in 6 in? You chose the heels. I chose beauty. You chose suffering. The line between the two is very thin." Sophia laughed. A genuine laugh. Something that had become rare lately. Mia seized the opportunity. "See? That right there." "What?" "You laughing." Sophia rolled her eyes. "Don't start." "I'm serious." Mia's voice softened. "You work too much." "I work enough." "You haven't been on a date in almost a year." Sophia grabbed her purse. "I'm aware." "You spend every waking hour either at the publishing company or the cafe." Again, aware. "You need excitement." "I need rent money." "You need a man." Sophia snorted. "I definitely do not." Mia laughed. "Keep telling yourself that." The call ended a few minutes later. Sophia slipped her phone into her purse and headed toward the door. The charity gala she was attending wasn't something she normally would have accepted. The invitation had come through the publishing company where she worked as an editorial assistant. Their firm had sponsored one of the event's literacy programs. Several employees had been invited. Most had declined. Sophia hadn't. Mainly because attendance came with free food. A fact she wasn't ashamed to admit. By 7 o'clock she was standing outside one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. Her confidence vanished instantly. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Valets moved efficiently between guests. Women emerged from expensive vehicles wearing dresses worth more than Sophia earned in several months. Men in tailored suits discussed business deals worth millions. Sophia suddenly felt ridiculous. Maybe this had been a mistake. Maybe she should go home. Maybe. "Sophia!" She turned. Mia appeared from nowhere and immediately linked their arms together. Her best friend looked stunning. Of course she did. Mia somehow managed to look stunning while buying groceries. "You were actually considering running away, weren't you?" Sophia frowned. "No." "You're a terrible liar." Mia began dragging her toward the entrance. "We're going inside." "Mia." "Nope. I don't belong here. Neither do half the people attending." Sophia laughed. "What does that even mean?" "It means rich people are weird." Mia. I'm serious. They entered the hotel. The ballroom took Sophia's breath away. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Live music drifted through the room. Elegant decorations transformed the massive space into something that looked straight out of a movie. Sophia stopped walking. For a moment she simply stared. The entire place felt unreal. Like stepping into another world. A world she had only ever seen through magazine pages and television screens. Mia nudged her. Stop looking so impressed. I am impressed. Act like you own the place. I own exactly $12. Details. Sophia shook her head. But some of her nervousness faded. Mia had always possessed an extraordinary ability to make everything feel less intimidating. They collected drinks from a passing waiter. Spent the next 20 minutes exploring the ballroom. Eventually Sophia began relaxing. Maybe tonight wouldn't be so bad. Maybe. The atmosphere changed. The shift was subtle at first. A ripple moving through the crowd. Conversation slowing. Heads turning. Attention redirecting. Sophia noticed it immediately. People were looking toward the entrance. Curious, she followed their gaze. And saw him. The man entering the ballroom didn't simply walk into the room. He commanded it. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Dressed in an impeccably tailored black suit. Dark hair. Strong features. An effortless confidence that bordered on dangerous. The crowd seemed to part around him. Not because anyone asked them to. Because instinctively they wanted to. Sophia frowned. Who's that? Mia followed her gaze. Then nearly choked on her drink. Oh. What? Oh no. What? Mia lowered her voice. That's Alessandro Moretti. The name meant nothing to Sophia. Which apparently shocked Mia. You've never heard of Alessandro Moretti? Sophia shook her head. Should I have? Mia stared at her. Then remembered who she was talking to. Sophia spent so much time working that she barely paid attention to celebrity gossip or business news. He owns half the city. Sophia blinked. What? I'm exaggerating. Pause. Only slightly. Sophia looked back toward the entrance. The man was speaking with several powerful-looking guests. Even from across the ballroom his presence felt overwhelming. There was something about him. Something impossible to ignore. What does he do? Mia hesitated. That hesitation immediately caught Sophia's attention. What? Nothing. Mia. He runs businesses. Mia. A lot of businesses. Mia. Her friend sighed. There are rumors. What kind of rumors? The kind involving organized crime. Sophia nearly laughed. You're serious? Very. Sophia looked at Alessandro again. He didn't resemble the criminals portrayed in movies. He looked polished, sophisticated, controlled, dangerous in an entirely different way. As though violence wasn't something he resorted to. It was something he could command. A strange sensation ran through her. Unsettling. Unexpected. At that exact moment, Alessandro turned. Their eyes met. The world seemed to pause. Sophia wasn't prepared for the intensity of his gaze. Even across a crowded ballroom, it felt direct. Focused. As though she were the only person in the room. Heat crept into her cheeks. She looked away immediately. Her heart doing something very strange. Mia noticed. Oh no. What? You think he's attractive? Sophia scoffed. Everyone thinks he's attractive. Not everyone looks like they just forgot how breathing works. I did not. You absolutely did. Sophia refused to answer. Because the truth was, for those brief few seconds, heat crept into her cheeks. She looked away immediately. Her heart doing something very strange. Mia noticed. Oh no. What? You think he's attractive? Sophia scoffed. Everyone thinks he's attractive. Not everyone looks like they just forgot how breathing works. I did not. You absolutely did. Sophia refused to answer. Because the truth was, for those brief few seconds, she had. And for reasons she couldn't explain. She had a feeling her life was about to become far more complicated than she ever imagined. The pregnancy test slipped from Sophia's fingers and landed on the bathroom counter with a small plastic click. For several seconds, she simply stared at it. Motionless. Breathless. Unable to process what she was seeing. Outside her apartment window, the city continued as normal. Cars moved through traffic. People walked along crowded sidewalks. Life carried on. But inside that tiny bathroom, Sophia Carter's entire world had just stopped turning. 2 pink lines. Clear. Unmistakable. Permanent. No. The word escaped her lips as little more than a whisper. Her hands trembled. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She looked away. Then looked back again. The result hadn't changed. It wasn't disappearing. It wasn't a mistake created by exhaustion or wishful thinking. It was real. Terrifyingly real. Sophia gripped the edge of the sink. The room suddenly felt too small. Too warm. Too difficult to breathe in. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when her life was already hanging together by a thread. Not when she was struggling to pay bills. Not when she barely had enough money for herself. And definitely not because of him. A painful ache settled in her chest. Because there was only one possibility. Only one man. Alessandro Moretti. The memory of that night flashed through her mind with brutal clarity. The way he had looked at her. The way he had touched her. The way she had felt safe in his arms despite every instinct warning her that she should run. One night. One reckless, beautiful, life-altering night. Sophia squeezed her eyes shut. Tears threatened. But she refused to let them fall. Crying wouldn't change anything. Panic wouldn't change anything. The test would still say the same thing when she opened her eyes. And when she finally did, the result remained there. Waiting. Unforgiving. Positive. Her phone buzzed. She nearly jumped. The screen illuminated. MIA calling. Sophia stared at the name. Normally she would answer immediately. Today she couldn't. Not yet. She declined the call. 30 seconds later another call arrived. Then another. Then a text. Answer your phone. Another. Are you alive? Another. Sophia. Despite everything, a small smile appeared. Mia had always been persistent. Sometimes annoyingly persistent. Eventually Sophia answered. What? Relief flooded through the speaker. Oh good. You're alive. Barely. You sound weird. Sophia closed her eyes. I am weird. That's not how that sentence works. Mia. Her friend's tone changed instantly. What happened? Sophia swallowed. The words caught in her throat. How was she supposed to say this? How did anyone say this? Finally she managed it. I'm pregnant. Silence. Complete silence. For nearly 5 seconds. Then. What? Sophia winced. Please stop screaming. I'm not screaming. You absolutely are. Oh my God. Sophia sat down on the closed toilet lid. Her legs felt too weak to hold her. Oh my God. Mia. Oh my God. Mia. Tell me you're joking. I'm not. Another pause. Then. Okay. Sophia blinked. Okay? Okay. Mia, this is not okay. I didn't say it was okay. You literally just said okay. I meant we're going to figure this out. The certainty in her friend's voice almost broke her. Because she desperately wanted to believe that. We don't even know what there is to figure out. Have you been to a doctor? No. Then start there. Sophia rubbed her forehead. Everything felt overwhelming. The future. The responsibility. The fear. And underneath all of it, One impossible question. Should she tell Alessandro? The thought alone made her stomach twist. Because informing Alessandro wasn't as simple as making a phone call. She barely knew him. One night. One unforgettable connection. And then she had disappeared. Not because she regretted it. Quite the opposite. She had left because staying felt dangerous. Not physically dangerous. Emotionally dangerous. There had been something about Alessandro that unsettled her. Not his reputation. Not his wealth. Not even the rumors surrounding him. It was the fact that for the first time in years, she had wanted some. And wanting more had always been a mistake. Sophia had learned that lesson early. People left. Dreams collapsed. Expectations hurt. So she had walked away before any of that could happen. Now life had complicated everything. Have you talked to him? Mia's question arrived carefully. Sophia laughed bitterly. No. You should. The answer came immediately. No. Why? Because I don't know him. Because he's dangerous. Because I don't belong in his world. Because I'm terrified. Instead, she simply said, "It's complicated." Mia sighed. Everything is always complicated with you. The doctor's appointment 3 days later confirmed what the test already had. Sophia was pregnant. 8 weeks. Healthy. Normal. Real. The doctor spoke kindly. Explained options. Discussed nutrition. Answered questions. Sophia heard maybe half of it. Because one thought kept repeating inside her head. 8 weeks. 8 weeks. 8 weeks. The timeline matched perfectly. There was no doubt. The baby was Alessandro's. When the appointment finally ended, she stepped outside and stood motionless on the sidewalk. People passed around her. Busy. Distracted. Unaware. Meanwhile, her future had become something entirely different. A tiny hand. Tiny feet. A child. Her child. The realization hit her with unexpected force. Fear remained. So did uncertainty. But beneath both emotions was something else. Something softer. Something she hadn't expected. Love. The baby wasn't even born yet. Yet somehow she already loved it. The thought brought tears to her eyes. For the first time since discovering the pregnancy, she smiled. Small. Fragile. But genuine. Then her phone rang. An unknown number. Sophia almost ignored it. Almost. Something made her answer. Hello? Silence. Then a male voice. Low. Calm. Professional. Miss Carter. Her stomach tightened. Who's this? We need to speak. Every instinct immediately activated. About what? A mutual acquaintance. Cold unease slid down her spine. Who? Another pause. Then, Alessandro Moretti. The world seemed to stop. Sophia's heart skipped. What? We need to meet. No. The answer came instantly. Sharp. Defensive. The man remained calm. Miss Carter. No. She ended the call. Immediately. Her pulse raced. How had someone connected to Alessandro found her? She had left no forwarding address. No contact information. Nothing. Yet somehow they had tracked her down. The phone rang again. She ignored it. Again. Ignored. Then a text arrived. Mr. Moretti wishes to speak with you. Sophia stared at the screen. Another text followed. He has been searching for months. Months. The word hit harder than she expected. Months. Alessandro had been looking for her? Why? The logical answer should have been obvious. Closure. Questions. Curiosity. Yet something deeper stirred inside her. Something she refused to examine too closely. She deleted the messages, blocked the number, and walked away. The next few weeks became a battle between fear and temptation. Every day she considered calling him. Every day she stopped herself. Some nights she would lie awake imagining the conversation. What would she even say? Hello. Remember me? By the way, you're going to be a father. The absurdity almost made her laugh. Almost. Because there was nothing funny about any of this. Especially after she began learning more about Alessandro. Information became impossible to avoid once she started searching. News articles. Business reports. Rumors. Whispers. Stories. The deeper she looked, the more complicated the picture became. Publicly, Alessandro Moretti was a billionaire businessman. Owner of shipping companies. Hotels. Investment firms. Construction projects. Privately. The rumors painted a different story. A darker one. Stories involving organized crime. Territories. Violence. Enemies. Power. None of it was proven. None of it was confirmed. Yet the consistency of the whispers unsettled her. People feared him. Not openly, but definitely. And fear existed for a reason. Sophia would sit in front of her laptop for hours. Reading. Researching. Trying to understand the man she'd spent one incredible night with. The more she learned, the more conflicted she became. Because despite everything, She couldn't reconcile those stories with the man she remembered. The Alessandro she remembered had been thoughtful, protective, gentle. He had listened when she spoke. Actually listened. He had made her laugh. Made her feel seen. Yet the world described someone entirely different. Which version was real? Maybe both. Maybe neither. Either way, one conclusion became impossible to ignore. The farther she stayed from him, the safer her child would be. And that decided everything. She wouldn't call. Wouldn't reach out. Wouldn't reopen that door. For the first time in her life, she wasn't making decisions solely for herself anymore. Now someone else came first. Across the city, Alessandro Moretti stood inside his penthouse office and stared at the photograph. The image wasn't perfect. Taken from a security camera. Slightly grainy. Distant. Yet he recognized her immediately. Sophia Carter. The woman who had vanished 6 months ago. The woman who somehow occupied his thoughts every single day. The woman he still couldn't forget. A knock interrupted his concentration. "Come in." The office door opened. Marco entered. Alessandro's most trusted lieutenant. "We found her." Alessandro's gaze sharpened. "I know." Marco glanced at the photograph. "You want us to approach?" "No." The answer surprised even Marco. Why not? Because Alessandro had spent months imagining this moment. Months wondering what he would say. Months asking questions with no answers. And now that she had finally been found, he wasn't sure. Something felt wrong. Sophia hadn't simply left. She had disappeared. People only disappeared when they were running from something. Or protecting something. Either possibility concerned him. "Keep watching." Marco frowned. "That's all. For now. And if she runs again?" Alessandro's expression hardened. "Then we'll find her again. Because this time, he wasn't letting her vanish so easily." 2 nights later, Sophia noticed the SUV. Black. Parked across from her apartment building. The vehicle remained there for hours. She tried convincing herself it meant nothing. Coincidence. A visitor. A delivery driver. Anything. Then it appeared again the next night. And again the night after that. Always the same vehicle. Always the same position. Always watching. Fear slowly settled into her stomach. Deep. Persistent. Wrong. Someone was observing her. The realization became impossible to ignore. And as she stood at her apartment window that third night, staring down at the street below, a terrible feeling washed over her. Because she suddenly understood something. Someone had found her. The question was no longer whether she was being watched. The question was who had found her first. Alessandro? Or someone far more dangerous? And deep down, Sophia feared she was about to discover the answer. Sophia barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the black SUV parked across the street. Waiting. Watching. Silent. The image haunted her thoughts until dawn finally crept through her apartment window. She had always trusted her instincts. They were the reason she had survived difficult years after losing her parents. The reason she had learned to recognize trouble before it arrived. And every instinct she possessed was screaming the same warning now. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The vehicle wasn't there by accident. Someone wanted to know where she lived. Someone wanted to know when she left. When she returned. Who she spoke to. What she did. The realization left a knot in her stomach. Sophia stood beside the window, coffee forgotten in her hand. The street below looked normal. People hurried toward work. Traffic crawled through morning congestion. Nothing appeared unusual. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was changing again. And not for the better. Her phone vibrated. MIA. Sophia answered immediately. Please tell me you've slept. I haven't. Mia sighed. Still thinking about the SUV. It's still there. Silence. Then. What? Sophia pulled the curtain aside. The vehicle remained parked exactly where it had been the night before. Black. Tinted windows. Motionless. Watching. It's there every night. Mia's voice became serious. Have you contacted the police? And tell them what? That a vehicle is legally parked on a public street. You know what I mean. Sophia did. But she also knew how ridiculous it would sound. Nothing illegal had happened. No threats. No harassment. Just a vehicle. Yet somehow that felt worse. Because whoever was inside wanted her to know they were there. And that terrified her. Over the next week, the situation escalated. Subtly at first. Then unmistakably. The SUV was no longer the only thing she noticed. One afternoon she exited the publishing company and spotted a man standing across the street. Tall. Dark jacket. Baseball cap. Watching. The moment their eyes met, he turned and walked away. The next day she noticed someone following her through a grocery store. Not close enough to confront. Not obvious enough to accuse. But there. Always there. Always present. The pressure slowly built. Like a storm gathering strength before landfall. By Friday, Sophia was terrified. She tried telling herself she was imagining things. Stress. Pregnancy hormones. Anxiety. But deep down she knew better. People were watching her. The only question was why. And the answer arrived 3 days later. At 2 o'clock in the morning. Sophia woke suddenly. Heart racing. Confused. For several seconds she didn't understand what had awakened her. Then she heard it. A noise. Small. Metallic. Coming from the living room. Every muscle in her body froze. The apartment was silent. Then another sound. A drawer opening. Someone was inside. Fear exploded through her. Sophia grabbed her phone from the nightstand. Her hand shook violently. She considered calling the police. Then another noise echoed from the living room. Closer this time. Whoever was there was moving deeper into the apartment. Sophia's breathing became shallow. The baby. The thought struck instantly. Protect the baby. Nothing else mattered. She slid quietly from the bed. Moved toward the bedroom door. Every step felt impossible. The apartment seemed deafeningly loud despite the silence. Another sound. A footstep. Someone was definitely inside. Sophia opened the bedroom door a fraction. And nearly screamed. The front door stood open. Cold night air drifted into the apartment. Drawers had been pulled out. Cabinets opened. Furniture disturbed. Someone had searched her home. But they were gone. Already gone. Her knees nearly gave out. The realization hit hard. This wasn't random. Nothing had been stolen. Her laptop remained untouched. Cash untouched. Jewelry untouched. Someone hadn't come to rob her. Someone had come looking for something. Or someone. Her. The next morning she called Mia. By afternoon, Mia was helping her pack. "You are not staying here." Sophia folded another shirt. "I don't have a choice." "You absolutely have a choice." "Mia?" "No." Her friend zipped a suitcase. "You're moving in with me." Sophia wanted to argue. Really wanted to. But she was exhausted. Terrified. And increasingly aware that she might genuinely be in danger. So she agreed. For now. Temporary. Just until things settled down. Though deep inside she doubted things were going to settle down anytime soon. Across the city, another conversation was taking place. A much darker one. A man sat inside a luxurious office overlooking the harbor. His name was Victor Romano. Leader of the Romano crime family. One of the few organizations powerful enough to challenge Alessandro Moretti. And currently one of the most dangerous men in the city. Victor stared at the file lying on his desk. Inside were photographs. Surveillance reports. Financial records. Schedules. Every detail investigators had managed to collect. All centered around one woman. Sophia Carter. Victor smiled. Slowly. Coldly. Interesting. One of his men shifted uneasily. We've confirmed the connection. How certain? Very. Victor leaned back. Alessandro spent months searching for her. That alone was enough. Because Alessandro Moretti never searched for anyone. People searched for him. Yet this woman had somehow become important. Important enough for him to dedicate resources. Time. Attention. Obsession. That made her valuable. And in Victor's world, valuable people became leverage. Weapons. Targets. Continue surveillance. The soldier nodded. And if Moretti finds her first? Victor's smile widened. Then we move faster. Sophia hoped moving into Mia's apartment would help. It didn't. The feeling persisted. The sensation of being watched. Followed. Observed. Everywhere. One evening she returned from work and found her mailbox open. Nothing stolen. Nothing damaged. Yet someone had clearly gone through it. The next day an unknown number called her 6 times. No voicemail. No explanation. No response when she answered. Only silence. The pressure became unbearable. By the end of the second week, she was barely functioning. Sleep became impossible. Food lost its appeal. Even work suffered. Her editor eventually pulled her aside. You look exhausted. Sophia forced a smile. I'm fine. You look like you're about to collapse. I'm just tired. The older woman frowned. Take a few days off. Sophia wanted to refuse. But honestly? The offer sounded heavenly. Maybe rest would help. Maybe stepping away from everything would clear her head. Maybe. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. Fear immediately returned. She declined the call. 30 seconds later another arrived. Then another. Then another. 5 calls. Back to back. Relentless. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't normal. Not anymore. Something was happening. Something she couldn't understand. And she was running out of time. The attack happened 3 nights later. Sophia was leaving a pharmacy. Rain fell lightly. Nothing dramatic. Nothing unusual. She had just purchased prenatal vitamins and a few groceries. Normal things. Ordinary things. For a few precious minutes she almost felt normal again. Then she noticed the van. White. Unmarked. Parked near the curb. A man stood beside it. Watching her. Sophia's pace slowed. The man smiled. Not kindly. Not warmly. The kind of smile predators wore before striking. Fear surged. Instantly. Violently. She turned. Started walking faster. Behind her, footsteps followed. Another man appeared. Then another. Her pulse exploded. Run. Every instinct screamed the same command. Run. Sophia obeyed. The grocery bag slipped from her hands. Items scattered across the sidewalk. She didn't stop. Didn't look back. Just ran. The footsteps accelerated behind her. Closer. Faster. A shout erupted. Then another. Panic consumed her. This was real. Whoever these men were, they wanted her. And they weren't trying to hide it anymore. Sophia rounded a corner. Nearly collided with someone. Strong hands caught her shoulders. She gasped. Looked up. And froze. The man standing in front of her wore a black suit. An earpiece. Professional posture. Professional eyes. Not one of the pursuers. Something else. Recognition flashed across his face. Then he spoke into a hidden microphone. "We have her." Sophia's blood ran cold. A black SUV screeched around the corner. Another followed. Then another. Everything happened at once. The men chasing her suddenly stopped. Expressions changing. Fear appearing. The newcomers were more dangerous. Much more dangerous. Vehicle doors opened. Armed men emerged. The atmosphere transformed instantly. Power shifted. Control shifted. The hunters had just become the hunted. Sophia's heart pounded. Because deep down, she already knew who these men worked for. One of the bodyguards opened the rear passenger door. Respectfully. Carefully. As though opening a throne room. The figure who stepped out was tall. Broad-shouldered. Impossibly familiar. 6 months disappeared in an instant. Sophia forgot how to breathe. Alessandro Moretti stood before her. Rain dripped from his dark hair. His expression was unreadable. But his eyes. Those eyes burned with something far more intense than anger. Relief. Possession. Determination. And something dangerously close to obsession. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The world seemed to disappear around them. Then Alessandro finally took a step forward. His gaze never leaving hers. 6 months of searching. 6 months of questions. 6 months of frustration. Visible in every line of his face. When he spoke, his voice was low. Controlled. Yet unmistakably emotional. "I finally found you." Sophia's chest tightened. The words hit harder than she expected, because they carried the weight of everything unsaid, everything unresolved, everything she had spent months trying to escape. And now there was nowhere left to run. Not anymore. Alessandro took another step closer. Close enough for her to see the exhaustion hidden beneath his calm exterior. Close enough to realize he truly had been looking. For months. Maybe longer. His jaw tightened. Then his eyes briefly moved to her stomach. Only for a second. Not enough to notice anything. Not enough to understand. Yet the gesture sent panic through her anyway. Because she suddenly realized something terrifying. The secret she had worked so hard to protect was becoming harder to hide. Much harder. Alessandro extended his hand. Not a request. Not quite a command. Something in between. Sophia. Her name sounded different coming from him. Dangerous. Familiar. Impossible to ignore. Rain continued falling around them. The city blurred into the background. And for the first time since she had disappeared, Sophia understood a simple truth. Finding her wasn't the end of her problems. It was only the beginning. The ride to Alessandro Moretti's estate was silent. Not because there was nothing to say. There was too much. Questions. Accusations. Explanations. 6 months of unresolved emotions sat between them inside the luxury SUV like a third passenger. Sophia stared out the rain-streaked window, watching the city lights blur into streaks of gold and white. Across from her, Alessandro sat perfectly still. His expression remained unreadable. Controlled. Dangerously calm. Yet every few minutes she caught him looking at her. As if confirming she was really there. As if he still didn't trust that she wouldn't disappear again. The realization made her chest tighten. Because she understood exactly why. She had vanished without a word. Without an explanation. Without giving him any chance to understand. At the time, she had convinced herself it was the right thing to do. Now she wasn't so sure. The SUV passed through massive iron gates. Sophia's eyes widened. The estate beyond looked less like a home and more like a private kingdom. Acres of perfectly maintained ground stretched into the darkness. Security lights illuminated pathways lined with ancient trees. Luxury vehicles sat parked near an enormous mansion that looked as though it belonged in a movie. The sight was overwhelming. She had known Alessandro was wealthy. She hadn't realized he was this wealthy. The vehicle stopped. One of the guards opened the door. Sophia stepped out. Immediately, she noticed security personnel positioned throughout the property. Armed. Alert. Watching. The estate wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. And suddenly she understood why. Men like Alessandro made enemies. Dangerous enemies. The thought brought her back to the men who had chased her earlier. A chill ran through her. Those men hadn't been random criminals. Someone had sent them. Someone powerful. Someone determined. Alessandro noticed her hesitation. "You're safe here." His voice was quiet. Certain. For reasons she couldn't explain, those words calmed her more than they should have. Inside, the mansion was stunning. Marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Elegant furnishings. Everything expensive. Everything carefully chosen. Yet despite the luxury, the house didn't feel cold. It felt lived in. Real. That surprised her. For some reason she had expected something sterile. Impersonal. Instead, there were books. Photographs. Signs of an actual life. A life she knew almost nothing about. A woman in her 50s greeted them near the main staircase. Her face immediately brightened when she saw Alessandro. Then her attention shifted towards Sophia. Curiosity flashed across her expression. "Oh." Alessandro sighed. A tiny sigh. But Sophia noticed. "This is Rosa." The woman smiled warmly. "I run the house." "You run everything," Alessandro corrected. Rosa laughed. "That's also true." Then she turned towards Sophia. "You're the one." Sophia blinked. "The one what?" Rosa's smile widened. Alessandro immediately interrupted. "Rosa." The warning in his voice only made the older woman more amused. "Interesting. Very interesting." Sophia stored that observation away. Because apparently everyone in this house knew exactly who she was. Hours later, Sophia stood alone inside a guest suite larger than her entire apartment. She should have felt relieved. Safe. Protected. Instead she felt overwhelmed. Everything had happened too fast. The chase. The reunion. The realization that Alessandro had been searching for her. Her hand drifted toward her stomach. Instinctively. Protectively. The secret still remained hers. For now. But every day made hiding it more difficult. And she knew the truth couldn't stay buried forever. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door. Alessandro stood outside. The sight of him sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. Annoying. Very annoying. Because she had spent 6 months trying to forget this man. Clearly, she had failed. "We need to talk." She almost laughed. That was probably the understatement of the century. The library became their battlefield. A massive room lined with bookshelves. Quiet. Private. Dangerous. Not because of weapons. Because of truth. Alessandro stood near the fireplace. Sophia remained by one of the windows. Distance separating them. Emotion connecting them. Finally, he spoke. "Why did you leave?" There it was. The question he had carried for months. The question she had dreaded. Sophia looked away. "I told you before. You said you had your reasons." His jaw tightened. "You never told me what they were." "Because I was terrified. Because I found out who you were. Because I was pregnant." The words remained trapped inside her. Instead, she chose the safer answer. "I needed space." A bitter laugh escaped him. 6 months of space. Sophia winced. Fair point. His gaze never left her. "I searched everywhere." Something vulnerable slipped into his voice. Briefly. Unexpectedly. "I thought something had happened to you." The confession hit harder than she expected. Because she could hear the truth. He wasn't angry because she left. He was angry because he had worried. Because he hadn't known. Because he had cared. The realization was dangerous. Very dangerous. Sophia forced herself to stay focused. Why? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Alessandro frowned. "Why what? Why search for me?" Silence. The room seemed to shrink. Neither moved. Neither looked away. Finally, Alessandro answered. "Because I couldn't forget you." Her heart stopped. Just for a second. Then it resumed beating twice as fast. The honesty in his voice left no room for doubt. He meant it. Every word. And somehow that scared her more than anything else. Over the next several days, life inside the estate settled into an uneasy rhythm. Sophia remained under protection. Not by choice. Alessandro refused to let her leave until they understood who was targeting her. At first she argued. Repeatedly. The arguments accomplished nothing. Because Alessandro was infuriatingly stubborn. Eventually she stopped fighting. Mostly because a part of her understood he was right. Someone wanted her. And she still didn't know why. Living together created new problems. Namely, proximity. Every meal. Every conversation. Every accidental encounter in hallways. The chemistry between them never disappeared. If anything, it became stronger. One morning Sophia found Alessandro in the kitchen making coffee. The image nearly broke her brain. The feared Mafia boss. Making coffee. Half asleep. Looking entirely human. He glanced up. Caught her staring. A faint smile appeared. A real smile. not the cold expression he showed the world. Something warmer. Something private. Sophia immediately looked away, which only made him smile more. Infuriating man. As the days passed, she began noticing things. Small things. Unexpected things. The version of Alessandro described by rumors didn't match reality. At least not completely. He called Rosa every Sunday morning without fail. He personally funded several children's charities. He paid medical expenses for former employees. He remembered birthdays, names, details. One afternoon, Sophia accidentally discovered an entire wing of the estate dedicated to charitable projects. Schools, hospitals, community centers. Millions of dollars quietly donated. No publicity. No media attention. No recognition. Just help. When she confronted him about it, Alessandro shrugged. They needed it. Most people would want credit. I don't care about credit. The simplicity of the answer stunned her. Because he genuinely didn't. The realization complicated everything. Again. She wanted him to be easy to hate. Easy to fear. Instead, he became harder to understand. And harder to resist. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, Victor Romano's patience was running out. The failed attempt to capture Sophia had cost him valuable men. Valuable resources. His temper worsened with every report. She's inside the estate. Yes. Victor cursed. Moretti's estate was nearly impossible to infiltrate. Protected. Guarded. Prepared. Which meant direct action wasn't an option. Not yet. But every fortress had weaknesses. Every king had vulnerabilities. And Victor intended to find Alessandro's. 3 weeks after arriving at the estate, disaster struck. The betrayal came from inside. Someone Alessandro trusted. Someone close. Someone who had spent years earning confidence. Marco. The revelation exploded through the household like a bomb. Sophia learned about it after being awakened by shouting. Then alarms. Then running footsteps. Chaos erupted throughout the mansion. Security teams mobilized instantly. Weapons appeared. Orders flew through radios. Fear spread rapidly. Sophia found Alessandro in the command center. The expression on his face terrified her. Not because he looked angry. Because he looked hurt. Betrayed. Marco had leaked information. Schedules. Security routes. Protected locations. Everything. People were already paying the price. Several loyal men had been ambushed. One remained in critical condition. The atmosphere inside the estate turned grim. Heavy. Dangerous. The war everyone had been trying to avoid had finally arrived. That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. She found Alessandro standing alone on a balcony overlooking the grounds. The city lights glowed in the distance. Neither spoke immediately. Eventually she stepped beside him. The silence felt strangely comfortable. Then Alessandro surprised her. "I should have seen it." His voice was quiet. "I trusted him." Sophia understood. Trust was dangerous in Alessandro's world. Perhaps more dangerous than bullets. You couldn't have known. A humorless laugh escaped him. "I should have." For several moments neither spoke. Then his gaze shifted toward her. Softening. Just slightly. The change stole her breath. Because for the first time since they reunited, she saw something undeniable. Not obsession. Not curiosity. Not attraction. Love. The realization terrified her. Because she felt it too. And that made what she had to do next infinitely harder. Her hand moved unconsciously toward her stomach. The gesture was small. Instinctive. But this time Alessandro noticed. His eyes followed the movement. His expression changed. Confusion first. Then suspicion. Then understanding began forming. Slowly. Dangerously. Sophia's heart nearly stopped. Because she suddenly knew. The secret was running out of time. And after everything that had happened. The attacks. The betrayal. The war. She couldn't hide the truth. Alessandro deserved to know. Even if the revelation changed everything. Even if it destroyed everything. She closed her eyes briefly. Gathering courage. Preparing herself. Then she looked directly at him. And made the decision she had spent months avoiding. Tomorrow. Tomorrow she would tell him. Everything. Not realizing that before morning arrived, the war outside their walls would become far deadlier than either of them imagined. Sophia didn't sleep. Not even for a minute. The decision she had made on the balcony replayed endlessly inside her mind. Tomorrow. Tomorrow she would tell him. Tomorrow Alessandro would finally learn the truth. The secret she had carried alone for months. The secret that had shaped every decision she had made. Every lie. Every fear. Every mile she had run. Tomorrow. Yet as dawn slowly painted the sky beyond her bedroom windows, Sophia realized something. She wasn't afraid of telling him. Not really. She was afraid of what came after. Because once Alessandro knew, there would be no going back. No pretending. No hiding. No distance. The truth would change everything. And deep down, she suspected it would change him too. The estate was unusually quiet that morning. The betrayal by Marco had shaken everyone. Security had doubled. Patrols moved constantly across the grounds. Every face looked tense. Prepared. Waiting for something. The feeling unsettled her. As though the entire estate knew a storm was approaching. And perhaps it did. Sophia found Alessandro in the library. The same room where they had argued. The same room where he had admitted he couldn't forget her. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows. Dust floated through the air. For a brief moment, everything felt peaceful. Normal. Almost. Alessandro looked up from the documents spread across the desk. Immediately, he knew something was different. She saw it in his eyes. The awareness. The concern. The focus. Sophia. His voice softened. What's wrong? Her heart pounded. Now. There would never be a perfect moment. Only this one. She moved closer. Close enough to see every detail of his face. The man she had tried to forget. The man she had failed to forget. The man she loved. The realization no longer frightened her. It simply existed. True. Unavoidable. Sophia inhaled slowly. Then met his gaze. I need to tell you something. Every instinct Alessandro possessed immediately sharpened. She saw it happen. The shift. The attention. The concern. He stood. The distance between them vanished. What is it? Sophia looked down. Her hand settled gently against her stomach. Instinctive. Protective. Alessandro followed the movement. Confusion appeared first. Then disbelief. Then realization. His eyes widened. The room became silent. Completely silent. Even the world outside seemed to disappear. Sophia's voice barely rose above a whisper. I'm pregnant. Nothing. No reaction. No words. For several long seconds Alessandro simply stared at her, as though he couldn't process what he had heard. Then his gaze moved to her stomach again. Back to her face. Again. And suddenly she saw it. Understanding. The timeline. The disappearance. The fear. Everything connecting. His jaw tightened. Not in anger. In shock. Pure shock. Sophia. His voice sounded rough. Unsteady. The most powerful man she had ever known suddenly looked completely lost. The sight nearly broke her heart. It's yours. The words hung between them. Simple. Life-changing. Permanent. Alessandro closed his eyes. Just for a moment. As though trying to absorb the reality. Then he looked at her again. Something had changed. Something profound. His entire world had shifted in a matter of seconds. And Sophia was watching it happen. "You've known this whole time." She nodded. Pain flash. Not because of the child. Because of the months. The distance. The absence. You carried this alone. The statement wasn't a question. It was heartbreak. Sophia swallowed. "I thought it was safer." The answer immediately hardened his expression. Safer. The word carried disbelief. "From me?" "No." The response came instantly. Passionately. Because that had never been the truth. "From your world." Silence returned. Alessandro looked away briefly. The tension in his shoulders became visible. His world. The violence. The enemies. The danger. For the first time, he saw it through her eyes. And perhaps he understood. At least a little. When he finally spoke again, his voice was quieter. "You should have told me." Tears burned her eyes. "I know." Neither moved. Then suddenly Alessandro stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. The embrace stole her breath. Strong. Protective. Certain. For several seconds she simply stood there. Then her own arms rose around him. Months of fear. Months of loneliness. Months of carrying everything alone. Finally broke. And for the first time since discovering the pregnancy, Sophia felt safe. The moment didn't last. A deafening explosion shook the estate. The windows rattled violently. Alarms erupted instantly. The entire mansion seemed to tremble. Sophia jumped. Alessandro's expression transformed. In a heartbeat, the loving man vanished. The king returned. Cold. Focused. Dangerous. Another explosion followed. Closer. Much closer. The war had arrived. The attack was massive. Far larger than anyone anticipated. Victor Romano wasn't testing defenses anymore. He was attempting to destroy them. Security teams flooded the estate. Gunfire echoed across the grounds. Smoke rose into the sky. Chaos erupted everywhere. Alessandro immediately moved Sophia toward a secure underground shelter. She resisted. Briefly. Until another explosion shook the walls. Fear won. Especially now. Especially with the baby. Several guards accompanied them. Professional. Efficient. Prepared. Yet even they looked concerned. The situation was deteriorating quickly. Inside the command center, reports arrived every few seconds. Perimeter breached. Vehicles approaching. Multiple casualties. Enemy forces advancing. Sophia watched Alessandro absorb information with terrifying efficiency. Giving orders. Redirecting resources. Making impossible decisions. For the first time, she witnessed the full weight of his responsibility. The reality of leadership. People depended on him. Trusted him. Would die for him. The realization left her stunned. Because beneath everything else, Alessandro carried an enormous burden. One he rarely showed anyone. Hours passed. The battle intensified. Then the worst report arrived. Victor himself had entered the estate. Everything changed. Because now this wasn't just an attack. It was personal. A message. A challenge. A declaration of war. Alessandro prepared to leave immediately. Sophia caught his arm. Fear filled her chest. Not for herself. For him. What if it's a trap? A faint smile touched his face. The kind she rarely saw. Soft. Warm. Almost gentle. It definitely is. The answer wasn't reassuring. At all. Yet somehow she laughed. A nervous laugh. An emotional laugh. A laugh born from desperation. Alessandro brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. The gesture was intimate. Tender. Human. And for a brief moment the war disappeared. Everything disappeared. There was only them. Then he leaned forward and kissed her. Slowly. Carefully. As though memorizing the moment. As though he needed to carry it into battle. When the kiss ended, his forehead rested against hers. I'll come back. Sophia wanted to believe him. Desperately. But war didn't offer guarantees. Only risks. Only sacrifices. Only consequences. The final confrontation took place in a warehouse near the harbor. Rain poured from the sky. Thunder rolled overhead. The city seemed determined to mirror the violence unfolding below. Alessandro arrived with a small team. Victor waited. Surrounded by armed men. Smiling. Confident. Certain he had already won. The confrontation that followed had been years in the making. Rivalries. Betrayals. Bloodshed. Everything converging into one final moment. Words became threats. Threats became violence. Violence became war. The battle erupted. Gunfire echoed through the warehouse. Men fell. Smoke filled the air. Chaos consumed everything. Alessandro fought through it all with relentless determination. Not for power. Not for revenge. Not even for victory. For Sophia. For the child he had just learned existed. For a future he never knew he wanted until now. That realization changed everything. Because Victor expected hatred. Expected vengeance. Expected the ruthless king everyone feared. Instead, he encountered a man fighting for something far stronger. Love. And love proved far more dangerous. By dawn, the war was over. Victor Romano's empire collapsed. The surviving members surrendered. Years of conflict ended in a single night. The cost had been high. Too high. But the threat was gone. Finally gone. 3 weeks later. Peace felt strange. Almost unfamiliar. The estate had begun healing. Repairs were underway. Life slowly returned. Sophia sat beneath a tree overlooking the gardens. One hand rested on her stomach. A small smile touched her lips. The future still felt uncertain. Parenthood. Family. Love. None of it came with instructions. Yet for the first time in months, she wasn't afraid. Footsteps approached. Alessandro sat beside her. The tension that had defined so much of his life seemed lighter now. Not gone, but lighter. His hand covered hers. Their fingers intertwined naturally. Effortlessly. Comfortably. A family. The thought made Sophia smile. Alessandro noticed. What? Nothing. His eyebrow lifted. That's never true. She laughed. A genuine laugh. The sound echoed through the gardens. And for the first time in years, Alessandro laughed too. Not the calculated smile shown to politicians. Not the cold amusement shown to rivals. A real laugh. The kind that transformed his entire face. The kind few people had ever seen. Sophia realized then that this was what happiness looked like. Not perfection. Not wealth. Not power. Just moments like this. Shared with the people who mattered most. That evening, a black envelope arrived. No return address. No identifying marks. Nothing. A guard delivered it directly to Alessandro. The moment he opened it, his expression changed. Immediately. The color drained from his face. Sophia noticed at once. Her stomach tightened. What is it? No answer. Alessandro continued staring at the contents. Silent. Motionless. Then slowly, very slowly, he looked up. The fear in his eyes chilled her. Because she had never seen fear in Alessandro Moretti before. Not once. Not ever. What is it? She asked again. The silence stretched. Heavy. Terrifying. Finally, Alessandro spoke. 5 words. 5 words that shattered the peace they had fought so hard to build. They found us. The envelope slipped from his hand. A single photograph slid onto the table. And when Sophia saw the image, her blood ran cold. Because the war they thought had ended had only just begun.